Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are cutting through all the noise to bring you a focused blueprint. We're talking about one of the biggest challenges in IT right now, getting a grip on runaway cloud costs through FinOps. So if you're out there, looking at this massive, complex, multi-cloud bill and you just need a structured way forward, something that isn't overwhelming, this deep dive is, well, it's basically your cheat sheet.
That is exactly right. So many organizations get the idea of cloud financial operations. They understand the concept. But the second they try to actually institutionalize it, to go from an idea to a real functioning practice, they just hit a wall. So our goal today is to break down the foundational guide into four critical, really actionable stages: research, propose, prepare, and launch.
And we're going to get into the friction points, right? The political stuff, the operational hurdles you're definitely going to hit.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so let's start with the non-negotiables. Before you even think about putting a slide deck together or calling that first meeting, what has to be in place? What's the baseline?
You have to have your cloud knowledge just locked down. Understanding that whole shift from CapEx to OpEx, knowing the core FinOps principles. But technically, the absolute #1 requirement is having access to your raw cost and usage data. And I mean raw data.
Just having the reports isn't enough, though, is it? We're talking about data normalization, and the source material specifically calls out the FUSA US standard. For someone dealing with, say, 3 different cloud bills, why is that so important?
Oh, it's the difference between flying completely blind and actually, navigating. If you're multi-cloud using AWS, Azure, GCP, whatever, their billing reports are basically speaking 4 different languages.
Right.
AWS might report storage one way, Azure handles its reserve capacity totally differently. FOSI has the FinOps open cost and usage specification. It's the key. It gives you a standard data model, so finance can finally stop comparing apples to oranges and start comparing, a standard unit A to a standard unit B. Without that, your whole practice is built on quicksand.
That makes perfect sense. So the data infrastructure is step 0. Now, what of that spark, the trigger? How does this whole organizational monster called FinOps usually get started?
The guide points to 3 main sparks. First, you've got the leadership mandate. That's top-down. The CEO saw the bill and basically demanded a change.
I can imagine that happens a lot.
It does. Then you have grassroots adoption, where engineers are sort of sneaking cost management into their pipelines. And the most common one is the individual initiative. Some dedicated person gathers all the data to get that leadership approval. But here's a crucial thing right up front. No matter how it starts, the adoption journey never really ends. It's continuous. You're always reassessing, often reproposing things as your company and tech evolves.
Okay, so let's unpack that. Stage 1, research. This sounds like it's not just about compiling a big spreadsheet. It's about building an unassailable case.
Precisely. Research is all about understanding your current state, baselining your spending, and gathering every single input you need to build that strategy. If you don't know who bought which reserved instance contract 2 years ago, or, where your shadow IT spend is hiding, you just can't succeed.
So you're gathering procurement data, usage reports like the AWS CRRs, and you're also looking at cloud hierarchy and tagging.
All of it.
What's the hardest part of that research stage? Is it digging through the technical reports, or is it like the internal interviews with people?
It's the friction, the organizational friction, 100%. You have to interview your core FinOps personas, engineering, finance, and you have to force them to be really honest about where the pain is.
You're uncovering some uncomfortable truths, I bet.
Big time. Truths about inefficiency, lack of ownership. It can get tense.
Let's talk about those interviews. The guide has some great questions. When you sit down with an engineering team, what's a dead giveaway that their maturity level is low?
You really want to know if they're optimizing at all. So a classic question is, are optimization processes being applied, or are you guys predominantly just using lift and shift?
The old lift and shift.
Exactly. If it's all lift and shift, you know immediately that you're paying for massive over-provisioning because they haven't adopted cloud-native sizing. You also ask if they monitor for anomalies. Their answers tell you if they're reactive or proactive.
And for finance, I'm guessing their pain is all about predictability and allocation.
Absolutely. For finance, you focus on process. Ask them, how are cloud costs allocated today? Are you using showback or chargeback? You need those concrete examples of budget overruns, that qualitative data, the stories of budget anxiety. That's often more valuable for your proposal than any single number.
Right, because that qualitative stuff helps you compute the KPIs for your proposal. You're not just saying, we can save money. You're providing actual benchmarks.
Yes, and the benchmarks have to be compelling. Don't just show total savings. You need KPIs that speak to the business. You could measure cloud unit economics, cost per user, cost per API call. You also compare your organization against peers using something like the state of FinOps data. If everyone in your industry has 95% tagging compliance and you're at 40%, well, that shows leadership the size of the gap right there.
And this is also where you scope out your team, your tooling, training needs, basically estimating the funding you'll need to ask for.
Right. Research proves the cost of doing nothing is higher than the cost of adoption. And that's your perfect setup for stage 2.
Which brings us right to it. Stage 2, propose. You've got all this uncomfortable data, the pain points, the benchmarks, the potential ROI. Now you have to walk into a room of skeptical execs and convince them this is a worthy investment.
This is where the organizational politics really kick in. You cannot have a one-size-fits-all presentation. You have to tailor the pitch.
To different personas.
Exactly. The CFO cares about predictability. The CTO cares about speed. The CEO cares about strategic alignment. For leadership, you have to show how FinOps aligns with their strategic goals. It's not just we're saving money, it's we're redirecting these savings to R&D or faster feature delivery.
So you're telling a story, and the guide breaks it into 3 parts. First up, defining the painful current state.
That's it. You highlight those pain points you found. The rising unpredictable bill, the lack of ownership, the inefficiencies like paying for massive databases that are 90% idle. You need to shock them a little bit with the cost of the status quo.
Then you present the solution, the roadmap of activities.
And this has to be concrete. You detail the scope, communication plans, tooling, team formation, and specific things you'll implement, like anomaly management. You have to be clear about when they'll see the first tangible savings.
And the final part of the story, defining the desirable future state.
That's your value prop. You emphasize the long-term benefits, better KPIs, timely decision-making, predictable bills, and a clear return on investment. And when you ask, you have to be explicit. Do you need agreement? Funds for headcount? Or just their sponsorship?
The guide also mentions piloting FinOps in a smaller part of the organization first. Is that mostly a de-risking strategy?
It's highly recommended. It's a proof of concept. If you can show a 15% reduction in one business unit's cloud spend in 6 months, that data becomes irrefutable. It builds momentum. It turns all that skepticism into, well, curiosity.
And when you're talking to these high-level execs who might not know a reserved instance from a savings plan, analogies must be critical. You can't just throw technical terms at them.
You have to simplify the financial engineering. Explain committed discounts, IRIs, savings plans by comparing them to signing a long-term utility contract.
Yeah.
You lock in a reduced rate for your electricity or your cloud capacity in exchange for a commitment.
Better predictable costs, but you give up some flexibility.
Ex-
And for usage optimization, I like how the guide moves past the simple turning off the light analogy. That doesn't really capture enterprise scale.
No, you have to shift the analogy to smarter engineering. It's not about turning lights off. It's about redesigning the building so the lights are only on in rooms with people, adjusting automatically. It's intelligent automation, right-sizing, auto-scaling. That's how you translate technical efficiency into business strategy.
Okay, we've got approval, we've got the funding. Let's unpack stage 3, prepare. This is all execution planning, designing the actual operating model.
The first step here, and it's often the most political, is defining an organizational home for the FinOps function. Does it sit in finance, engineering, or, as the guide recommends, does it integrate with the Cloud Center of Excellence, the CCOE?
Integrating with the CCOE sounds great on paper, but CQEs usually have their own mandates, like architecture or security. How do you stop FinOps from just being seen as the cost police tacked onto an established tech team?
It takes a really clear delineation of responsibilities and a cultural commitment. FinOps shouldn't be the auditor. It needs to be the consultant, the enabler. The CCOE focuses on how to build things securely and scalably. FinOps focuses on how much that costs and how to measure its value.
Their goals are complementary, but the roles have to be separate and respected.
You've got it.
The guide also advises against trying to solve everything at once, favoring an MVP, a minimum viable product solution. So if you're starting from zero, what capabilities do you focus on first to get those quick wins?
You start where the pain is highest, but you have to build the foundation first. So data ingestion, allocation, and reporting, that's paramount. You must deliver cost visibility. It underpins everything else, chargeback, accountability, all of it.
And since budget overruns are probably the reason FinOps got approved in the first place.
Exactly. Forecasting and budgeting are critical early on, often paired with anomaly management. You need to project spend and catch those weird spikes immediately. And for those quick, tangible wins, you focus on workload optimization and rate optimization. Get those idle resources shut down, secure those committed discounts.
So that sets up the processes. But preparing is also about preparing the people.
Absolutely. You need education and enablement. This means training plans not just for the core FinOps team, but for everyone. Engineers, product owners, finance, you can use internal events like FinHacks or formal training to really change the mindset.
It's that collaboration piece, right? Making sure engineering and finance are actually talking to each other with clear expectations.
You have to establish feedback loops, regular meetings, COE participation. You need that collaboration to make sure the rules and tools you design actually work in the real world.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Stage 4, launch. This is the formal kickoff.
Right.
The shift into ongoing routine operations. It's less about planning and more about, well, executing.
Yes, and the launch activities have to be highly visible. Announce the practice, formalize the roles, roll out the tooling, and crucially, execute on those easy wins you found earlier and publicize them.
Like a win wall or something.
Exactly. Launch a win wall, a dashboard that celebrates successes. This immediately shifts the culture from cost anxiety to cost awareness and even achievement.
And on the internal side, this is where ambiguity about ownership can just kill a new practice. How do you formalize those interactions to make sure there's accountability?
We use tools like RACI. Responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed. A RACI matrix is critical because it prevents that classic problem. We saved $500,000, who gets the credit? Or worse, the bill doubled, who's responsible? It defines who does what.
Can you give us a quick, concrete example, maybe for the capability of allocation?
Sure, let's use allocation. So the FinOps practitioner is typically accountable. A, they own the outcome. Engineering is responsible for the execution. They're the ones actually applying the tags to the resources. Then product and finance are consulted. C, we need their input to make sure the tags reflect the business, and leadership is informed of the results.
That distinction is so important. If tags are missing, the practitioner knows exactly who is responsible for the process to fix it. It makes accountability systemic.
Precisely. And the most important launch tip of all, and we have to emphasize this, is that this is a long game. Don't try to implement FinOps for the whole organization all at once. Focus on the highest value, lowest friction targets first.
Because it's a continuous, iterative process. A successful launch really just means the real work is starting.
That is the key. Success depends on sustaining that focus and continuously improving your capability maturity. You need to schedule regular assessments to check if your targets are still relevant, if the market's shifted, or if you've had an acquisition. You might find yourself right back in stage 1, reproposing parts of the practice.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? We've taken this overwhelming task of starting a FinOps practice and turned it into a structured, manageable roadmap. Research, propose, prepare, and launch. It gives you the steps to go from just reacting to your cloud bill to actively managing it and driving real business value.
And the key application here is understanding that your tools are only as effective as the organizational alignment behind them. FinOps success is, fundamentally, it's a cultural success. It's sustained by constantly improving.
That leads to a great final thought for you to mull over. This FinOps adoption journey isn't something you do just once. It's a path you have to travel many times over. As your cloud providers, your partners, your internal structure, as all of that evolves, your practice has to adapt. So the question is, how can you future-proof your initial FinOps structure, knowing that change is inevitable and you'll have to reassess and repropose to stay efficient?
A vital question for anyone starting out.
Thanks for joining us for the deep dive. We'll see you next time.